Goals excite the mind, but systems train the body and shape behavior over time. A goal can spark emotion in a single moment, but emotion is temporary and unreliable. Systems are designed to work without emotional energy, which is why they last. When motivation disappears, systems remain. They don't ask how you feel, they simply demand action. This is why people who rely only on goals often start strong and fade fast. Inspiration creates a burst, but structure creates momentum. Sustainable growth never comes from excitement alone. It comes from repeatable actions that quietly move you forward every single day. A goal is something you hope to reach in the future, while a system is something you practice in the present. Most people live mentally in the future, dreaming of outcomes, while neglecting the daily process that makes those outcomes possible. Systems pull your focus back to today. They ask one simple question: what must be done now? When your attention stays on daily execution, progress becomes natural instead of forced. The future takes care of itself when the present is handled correctly. Systems turn big dreams into manageable actions that fit into ordinary days. Goals depend heavily on motivation, and motivation depends on mood. That is a dangerous combination. Systems, on the other hand, depend on commitment and design. When a system is built correctly, it works even when energy is low. You don't need to feel inspired to follow a routine. You simply follow it because it exists. This is why systems are more reliable than willpower. Willpower runs out. Structure does not. The strongest people are not those with the most motivation, but those with the best systems supporting their behavior. Another problem with goals is that they create pressure. Pressure often leads to burnout, procrastination, or fear of failure. Systems reduce pressure by breaking progress into small, repeatable steps. When the task is clear and limited, the mind feels safe enough to act. Progress becomes calm instead of stressful. You stop trying to conquer everything at once and start trusting the process. Systems replace urgency with rhythm. They allow growth to happen steadily, without emotional chaos, panic, or constant self-judgment about how far you still need to go. Systems also create consistency, and consistency is what produces results. Success is rarely the result of one big effort. It is the result of many small efforts done without interruption. Systems protect consistency by removing daily negotiation. You no longer debate whether today matters. Every day matters because the system says so. Over time, this consistency compounds into skill, confidence, and momentum. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. What once required effort becomes identity. Consistency turns average actions into exceptional outcomes through repetition. When you rely on goals, failure feels personal. Missing a target can damage confidence and create discouragement. Systems change that dynamic. With systems, there is no failure, only feedback. If something doesn't work, you adjust the process rather than judging yourself. This mindset keeps you moving forward instead of stopping. Systems encourage learning instead of quitting. They make progress flexible while keeping commitment firm. You stay in motion even when conditions change because the focus is on improving the process, not protecting ego. Systems also align your actions with reality. Life is unpredictable, but systems are adaptable. A well-built system can survive bad days, busy schedules, and unexpected obstacles. Goals often collapse when life interrupts them. Systems bend without breaking. They allow you to scale effort up or down without losing direction. This flexibility keeps you consistent over long periods of time. Longevity matters more than intensity. The ability to continue, even imperfectly, is what separates lasting success from temporary progress. Over time, systems quietly reshape who you are. What you repeatedly do becomes what you believe about yourself. When your system proves that you show up daily, confidence grows naturally. Discipline stops feeling forced and starts feeling normal. You no longer chase success because your routine already reflects it. The system becomes part of your identity, and identity drives behavior effortlessly. When action and identity align, progress stops feeling like work and starts feeling like who you are becoming. A goal is a picture of a future outcome, something you imagine happening at some distant point in time. It feels exciting because it represents change, success, or relief. But the problem with living in that future picture is that it can disconnect you from the present moment. When people focus only on where they want to go, they often overlook what they must do today. Systems pull attention back into daily life. They replace dreaming with doing. They transform ambition into action by making progress something you practice instead of something you wait for. Systems live in the present, not in imagination. They are built around daily behaviors that fit into real life rather than ideal conditions. While goals ask for massive change all at once, systems ask for manageable effort today. This makes growth feel possible instead of overwhelming. You no longer need perfect circumstances to move forward. You only need to follow the process laid out in front of you. When progress becomes part of your day, momentum builds quietly without pressure or drama, and forward motion feels natural instead of forced. Many people set goals because they want certainty. They want to know exactly where they will end up. Systems teach a different lesson. They teach trust in process rather than obsession with outcome. You may not always know where a system will take you, but you know it will take you somewhere better than where you started. This mindset removes anxiety about results. You focus on execution, not prediction. Systems free your mind from constantly measuring distance to the finish line and allow you to invest fully in the work of today. Goals can become distractions when they dominate your thinking. You start counting days, tracking progress obsessively, and comparing your LF to others. Systems quiet that noise. They create a rhythm that grounds you in routine. When you know what you do every day, comparison loses power. Your attention turns inward toward improvement instead of outward toward validation. This internal focus strengthens discipline. It builds self-trust. You stop chasing motivation because your schedule already tells you what matters now. A system turns effort into habit and habit into identity. When you repeat an action daily, it stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like normal behavior. Goals often require emotional energy to sustain, but systems rely on repetition. Repetition rewires the brain. It lowers resistance. Over time, the action becomes automatic. You no longer struggle to start because starting is built into your day. This is how consistency is born. Systems make progress inevitable by removing friction from action. Systems also create clarity. Instead of asking big questions about the future, you answer small questions about the present. What do I do this morning? What do I do this afternoon? What do I do before the day ends? These simple decisions reduce overwhelm. Complexity is replaced with order. When clarity increases, stress decreases. You gain confidence not because everything is perfect, but because you know what your next step is. Forward movement becomes steady and predictable. Living in systems teaches patience. You learn that growth happens through accumulation, not shortcuts. Each day may feel small, but small days add up. Systems train you to respect the process and trust time. You stop rushing outcomes and start honoring consistency. This patience protects you from burnout. It keeps you grounded during slow progress and focused during fast progress. Systems help you remain emotionally stable regardless of temporary results, which allows long-term improvement to continue. As systems guide daily behavior, the future begins to shape itself. Without constantly thinking about goals, you start noticing progress naturally. Skills improve, confidence grows, opportunities appear. This happens because systems position you for success without constant effort to control outcomes. When your daily actions are aligned, results follow quietly. The future becomes a reflection of what you consistently do today rather than what you hope will happen someday. Motivation is unpredictable because it is tied to emotion, and emotion changes with circumstances. One good night of sleep can make you feel unstoppable, while one bad moment can drain all desire to act. When progress depends on how you feel, progress becomes fragile. Systems are powerful because they separate action from emotion. They do not wait for excitement or confidence to appear. They operate on pre-decided rules. When action is scheduled and structured, mood loses control. This is why systems outperform motivation every time, especially over long periods where emotions rise and fall constantly. When a system is in place, the question is no longer whether you will act, but when. decision-making is removed, and with it goes hesitation. Most people don't fail because they can't do the work. They fail because they waste energy deciding. Systems eliminate that mental drain. You don't negotiate with yourself. You simply follow the plan. This conservation of mental energy allows you to stay consistent longer. Consistency is not about strength of character alone. It is about reducing the number of decisions required to move forward. Willpower is a limited resource. It gets weaker as the day goes on, especially when life adds pressure, stress, or fatigue. Systems protect you from willpower exhaustion by making action automatic. When something is part of your routine, it no longer requires effort to start. You don't rely on discipline in the moment because discipline was already used when the system was designed. This is why people with strong systems appear disciplined even on hard days. The system carries them when personal energy is low. Consistency is born when behavior becomes predictable. Systems create predictability by anchoring actions to time, environment, or triggers. When an action always happens at the same time or after the same event, the brain accepts it as normal. Over time, resistance fades. What once felt difficult becomes expected. This predictability builds trust with yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. That self-trust strengthens confidence and reinforces the system, creating a powerful loop of reliability and self-respect. Without systems, people often rely on bursts of effort. They work intensely for a short time, then disappear. This cycle creates frustration and guilt. Systems break that pattern by favoring steady effort over intensity. They teach you that showing up matters more than pushing hard. Even small actions count when they are repeated consistently. Systems shift focus from doing a lot to doing enough every day. This approach prevents burnout and keeps progress moving forward, even when circumstances are not ideal. Systems also reduce emotional drama around progress. When action is routine, success and failure feel less personal. You are no longer attached to daily outcomes. You simply complete the process. If something doesn't work, you adjust the system rather than questioning your worth. This creates emotional stability. You stop riding highs and lows and start operating from steadiness. That steadiness allows learning, improvement, and growth to happen without fear or self-criticism interrupting the process. As consistency grows, momentum builds quietly. Each completed action reinforces the habit and strengthens the system. You don't need external validation because the system itself proves progress. Days connect into weeks, weeks into months. What started as effort becomes rhythm. Rhythm becomes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who shows up no matter what. This identity makes consistency easier because acting in alignment with who you believe you are requires less resistance than forcing change. Eventually, systems become the foundation of long-term success. They outlast motivation, survive disruption, and adapt to change. While goals may shift or disappear, systems remain useful. They become part of how you live, work, and think. Consistency is no longer something you chase. It is something you embody. When systems guide behavior, progress continues naturally, quietly shaping outcomes without constant struggle or emotional effort. Small actions feel insignificant in the moment, which is why most people dismiss them. They underestimate what repetition can do over time. A single step does not look powerful, but thousands of steps taken consistently can cross continents. Systems focus on these small actions because they understand compounding. Compounding is the quiet force that turns little effort into massive change. When you commit to small daily actions, you remove fear and overwhelm. You stop waiting for perfect timing and start building progress with what you can control today. Intensity creates attention, but consistency creates results. One powerful effort can impress people, but repeated effort transforms lives. Systems are built to favor consistency because consistency respects reality. Life is busy. Energy fluctuates and motivation is unreliable. Small actions fit into real schedules. They are easy to repeat, easy to maintain, and hard to quit. When something feels manageable, you show up more often. Showing up more often is what allows progress to accumulate steadily without pressure or burnout interfering with growth. Compounding works because progress builds on itself. Each small action strengthens the next one. Skills improve, confidence increases, and resistance decreases. What once required effort starts requiring less thought. This creates acceleration over time. In the beginning, results feel slow and almost invisible. Later, growth becomes noticeable and then unstoppable. Systems protect this compounding effect by keeping actions consistent. Missing days interrupts momentum, but daily action feeds it. The power is not in how big the action is, but in how often it is repeated. Small systems also reduce the fear of failure. When the action is small, failure feels small. You are not risking everything in one attempt. This makes it easier to begin and easier to continue. Progress becomes forgiving instead of intimidating. Systems invite learning rather than perfection. You improve gradually without pressure to be flawless. Over time, small improvements stack up. Each improvement raises your standards slightly higher than before, creating growth that feels natural instead of forced. Consistency builds trust with yourself. Every time you complete a small action, you send a signal that you follow through. That signal strengthens confidence. Confidence is not built by big promises, but by kept commitments. Systems turn promises into habits. When habits form, identity shifts. You begin to see yourself as disciplined, capable, and reliable. This identity makes it easier to continue. The action reinforces the belief, and the belief reinforces the action, creating a loop that fuels long-term success. Small daily actions also protect against burnout. Burnout often comes from trying to do too much too fast. Systems slow you down in a healthy way. They prioritize sustainability over speed. When effort is balanced, energy remains stable. You don't crash because you never overload yourself. This allows progress to continue even during stressful periods. Systems respect human limits. They recognize that lasting success requires pacing, not pressure, and steady rhythm rather than constant urgency. Over time, small actions begin to create visible results. The body responds, skills sharpen, opportunities appear. Outsiders may call it sudden success, but it was built quietly through repetition. Systems ensure that growth happens even when no one is watching. They make progress private before it becomes public. This protects focus and prevents distraction. You stay committed to the process instead of chasing recognition. The reward becomes the progress itself. Eventually, small systems change the direction of your entire life. Daily choices shape years. Years shape destiny. What felt minor becomes meaningful through time. Systems remind you that greatness is not created in moments of intensity, but in moments of consistency. When you honor small actions daily, you allow compounding to work in your favor, reshaping outcomes through patience, discipline, and quiet persistence. Most people believe their life is the result of luck, talent, or circumstances, but in reality, it is the result of routines repeated over time. What you do without thinking has more influence than what you do with intention once in a while. These invisible systems operate quietly in the background, shaping outcomes day after day. Eating habits, spending habits, thinking habits, and work habits all function as systems. Whether designed or accidental, they produce results consistently. Your current situation is not random. It is the predictable outcome of patterns you have practiced long enough to become normal. Because these systems are invisible, people rarely question them. They assume their results are fixed rather than formed. They react to outcomes instead of examining routines. When something goes wrong, they blame external factors instead of internal structure. Systems make life feel automatic, which is both their strength and their danger. If the system is good, life improves effortlessly. If the system is poor, life declines quietly. Awareness is the first step to change. You cannot improve what you refuse to examine, especially when it feels familiar and comfortable. Any people work hard inside broken systems. They apply more effort but get the same results. This creates frustration and confusion. Effort alone cannot overcome poor structure. If the system is flawed, effort only speeds up failure. Changing outcomes requires changing inputs, and inputs are controlled by systems. When you adjust the routine, the result must adjust as well. This shift in thinking moves you from self-blame to self-responsibility. You stop asking why things are hard and start asking why your system produces resistance instead of progress. Systems shape behavior even when you are not paying attention. Environment, schedule, and habits quietly guide choices. If unhealthy food is always nearby, eating poorly becomes automatic. If distractions surround you, focus becomes difficult. Systems either support or sabotage your intentions. This is why willpower alone rarely works. Willpower fights the system while structure works with it. When the environment supports the behavior, discipline feels natural. When it doesn't, discipline feels exhausting. Designing systems means designing surroundings that make the right action easier than the wrong one. Your income is a system. Your health is a system. Your confidence is a system. None of these are single decisions. They are outcomes of repeated behaviors over time. When people want change, they often look for motivation instead of modification. But motivation fades. Systems remain. The moment you accept that your results are system-driven, you regain control. You stop feeling stuck and start seeing leverage points. Small changes to routines can create massive shifts in outcomes when applied consistently. Invisible systems also explain why change feels uncomfortable. When you alter a routine, the brain resists because familiarity feels safe. Even poor systems feel comfortable because they are known. Growth requires disrupting what feels normal. This discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of transition. When you persist long enough, the new system becomes the new normal. Comfort returns at a higher level of performance. The struggle was never about capability, but about replacing old patterns with better ones. Systems reveal truth without emotion. They do not lie or exaggerate, they simply produce results. If progress is slow, the system needs adjustment. If results are strong, the system is working. This removes drama from self-improvement. You no longer judge yourself harshly. You evaluate processes objectively. This mindset creates calm, steady growth. Improvement becomes mechanical rather than emotional. You learn to think like an architect of your life rather than a critic of yourself. Once you understand that systems shape outcomes, you stop chasing shortcuts. You focus on structure, rhythm, and repetition. You begin to respect daily choices because you see their long-term impact. Small adjustments gain importance. Consistency gains value. Life stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling intentional. The invisible becomes visible, and what was once unconscious becomes a tool you can redesign to create better results over time. Identity is not something you choose once. It is something you reinforce daily through behavior. Every action you repeat casts a vote for the type of person you believe you are. When actions are inconsistent, identity feels unstable. Systems bring in order to that instability by creating predictable behavior. Predictable behavior shapes predictable self-belief. When you show up consistently, even in small ways, you begin to trust yourself. That trust changes how you think, speak, and decide. Identity stops being a wish and becomes evidence. What you repeatedly do becomes who you quietly believe yourself to be over time. Many people try to change identity through